What's up, everybody? Teague from Battle City Games back here with another post-Alliance Insight deck profile. Today we're going to be taking a look at pure Mitsurugi. Recently we took a look at Azumina Mitsurugi, which I think is a really cool way to play the deck, but does have a few inherent weaknesses in the fact that it can't play as many going second cards because of the space that the Azumina engine takes up. You lose out on a couple of cool tech card spaces. So I really wanted to show you guys my take on the pure build. I really love this archetype. I love the theming of it. And I love the fact that after several years, Konami actually gave us a competitively viable TCG exclusive. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and dive on in. I'm going to briefly overview the new cards, but anything that came out previously in Supreme Darkness, I'm not going to go through explaining the effects and stuff just for the sake of time. So let's go ahead and get started. Starting with the main deck, we are on triple copies of the brand new Ame no Mitsurugi, or Ame no Habikiri no Mitsurugi. It's a mouthful. So this is a brand new level 8 ritual. It does everything the deck could have wanted, honestly. So it has its first effect, which is the main one that makes it so good, which is the fact that you can reveal it in your hand, special summon a Mitsurugi monster from your deck, and then tribute a monster on field. And that is once per duel. Honestly, that's good. Otherwise, this card would have been way too broken. But this allows you to get into whatever you need. If you need Saji to search a ritual spell, if you need Aramasa to search another ritual monster like your Futsu or your Murakumo, you can do that. So just the flexibility of this card, being another starter is great. And then it does have the on-field effect that all of your opponent's monsters lose 800 attack, which does make it harder for them to beat over some of your stuff, especially something as big as Murakumo in attack or Futsu in defense. Himself, he's only 2400, so he's a little bit smaller, but again, decreasing your opponent's monsters 800 is going to help make it harder for him to get over him. And then he has the same effect when he's tributed. He can search a Mitsurugi card from deck to hand, and then if he was properly ritual summoned, he can also summon himself back. So great floating ability, grind game there. Then for the other rituals, we are on double copies of Murakumo. We can, of course, ritual summon from deck, but typically the way the combo goes, you want to search one of your targets like Murakumo to ritual summon from hand, and then you're going to use your ritual summon from deck for your other target. So we want two copies. We also don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we don't have access to our Murakumo. If it gets banished and we can't easily get it back for any reason, we just want to make sure we have that additional copy that we can get into. And then for our last ritual, we're on one Futsu. This isn't a card you see a lot of Raizio Mitsurugi builds play, but I think in the pure build it's crucial. It's what's helping you with your grind game, making it so every time your opponent special summons a monster, you get to special summon back a Mitsurugi and, summon Saji, search a spell, summon Kusanagi, recur a card from your graveyard, whatever the case may be. It just makes it very hard for your opponent to crack through your board, because as they're building up their board, you're also going to be building up your own resources through Futsu recurring cards and then activating the effects of those cards that you summon. Moving into the normal monsters, or the non-ritual monsters, we have 3 copies of the brand new Aramasa. So Aramasa is another one to level 4 Mitsurugis. He has the ability that on normal summon, special summon, or tribute, he searches a Mitsurugi monster from deck to hand. So he's another great starter, because if you open Aramasa, no Habikiri, you can normal summon Aramasa, search Habikiri, and then use Habikiri to special Saji. Saji will get you your ritual spell, and that's full combo from there. So he just grabs whatever monster piece you're missing, typically Habikiri, but can be anything else as well. And then he does have the classic effect for the non-ritual monsters, where if another reptile you control would be destroyed, he can destroy himself in place of that card. Keep in mind, it won't work for something like Dark Hole or Raigeki, where everything's already designated to be destroyed, but if your opponent forgets that that effect is there, which is very easy to do, maybe they use a targeted destruction effect on something like your Murakumo or your Futsu, and you're able to just sub out the Aramasa. and he tributes himself for that effect. So if he hasn't already activated his effect that turn, he will get to trigger his own tribute effect as well. So 3 copies of him because he is one of our 1-card starters. And then we are on 2 copies of Saji. Saji's still extremely powerful. Obviously, you've heard me reference him in most of the combo explanations I've done. But he's not always a 1-card starter. Just summon Saji, search ritual spell, or search prayers doesn't necessarily get you full combo depending on the rest of your hand. But we do still want access to him. And I like to play 2. I've seen some people cut it down to 1, even in pure Mitsurugi. But I like to play 2 because if you open 1, you still want to have 1 in deck to tribute later. The one thing that I found with this game, or with this deck as the game goes on, you do run out of Mitsurugi monsters in deck, which can make your prayers less effective. It can make your Mitsurugi ritual to summon from hand a little bit less effective because now you're tributing monsters from hand or field instead of being able to tribute them directly from deck. So I like 2 copies. And then for the last of the level 4 Mitsurugi monsters, we have 1 Kusanagi. Kusanagi is, of course, how we're going to be grabbing back all of our Mitsurugi cards from Grave or Banish that we need. He's really, along with Futsu, one of the cards that allows us to grind so efficiently, because as long as your Kusanagi's in rotation, nothing else is fully out of rotation, even if your opponent does banish it. But he's not a starter at all. He's only really kind of an extender, because he only gets you cards that you already utilized or sent to the graveyard or banished. But he is crucial to your strategy, so you absolutely want to include him in the deck. And then for the last Mitsurugi monster, we are on one of the brand new Wusu. So Wusu is a card that you're not going to find in any non-pure builds because of his restrictions. But he's a level 8 that has an inherent summon ability to tribute a monster your opponent controls and tribute a reptile from your hand. So similar to a kaiju, this doesn't activate. Your opponent can't respond to your declaration of summon. If you're going against Malice and they're sitting there with something like an allied code ad ignister, or even anything else that's just a problem card, you can just immediately, first action in your main phase, tribute it for Wusu. And even though it's a card that you would think is really only good going second, because Mitsurugi is looking to play the grind game, typically you're not always going to win in one turn. Even being able to search a Wusu on your opponent's turn through one of your other Mitsurugis being tributed, or your prayers, or whatever the case may be, and just threatening to your opponent, hey, whatever the biggest threat on your board is, when it comes back to me, it's just gone, and there's nothing you can do about it. Very powerful card. Again, we can always recur it back, and he does have the ability as well, when he's tributed, you can discard a card to add him back to your hand. So regardless of all the other ways you can grab him back, if you're sitting there with something like a dead Molcharmi in your hand, for example, when you tribute him off for one of your ritual summons or whatever the case may be, you can just discard that dead card, get him back, and again, just threaten your opponent with, hey, this is a card you have to deal with, and you really can't deal with unless we go into your hand with like a triple tactics talent. So this is a card that is just going to immediately answer part of whatever board you're putting up. So very powerful, but we never really want to open multiples because you can only summon him once per turn. So that's why we're on the 1 copy. Moving into these spells, because we're on a pure build, we are on triple copies of Mitsurugi Ritual. Insanely powerful ritual spell, and because, again, we're on a pure build, we're not going to be opening hands that are like part Azumina, part Mitsurugi, or part Raizu, part Mitsurugi, any of those. We just want to maximize our copies of opening ritual plus a way to ritual summon. That way, if we do maybe not open a Habakiri, maybe we open ritual and a Murakuma ritual and a Futsu, we can still get into our full combo because we'll be able to tribute from deck and get to what we need to. So triple copies there. Triple copies of probably the most powerful spell in the deck, and it's not even a ritual spell, Prayers. This card just does everything. It gets your resources back from the graveyard, it searches your deck, it dodges targeted disruption like infinite impermanence, or effect failure, anything like that. Just an all-around outstanding card. But again, just helps you in the grind game and helps you play around certain threats that your opponent may have. One of the brand new Mitsurugi Mirror. Not all that impressive of a ritual spell in itself. It tributes from hand or field to ritual summon from hand or graveyard. Being able to summon back from graveyard is nice. And then it has a secondary effect that when one of your ritual monsters on board is tributed, it can shuffle itself back into deck. So that's why you only need one copy. Because it can always put itself back into a deck for later. The big thing that makes this card so amazing is the fact that it mentions all three of our rituals, so we can play Pre-Preparation of Rites, which you'll see in a moment. But one copy, never going to want more, because it is also a hard once per turn on both effects, so you can't even recur it back with Kusanagi and use it to ritual summon a second time in the same turn you've already used it, but crucial to the grind game and consistency of the deck. And then another card we're taking advantage of in the pure build is the brand new Mitsurugi Magatama. This is a quick play. It tributes a reptile from board and then activates one of two effects. Effect number 1, you can target a face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. Effect number 2, you can ritual summon. And this has to be activated in the main phase, but the flexibility of this card is really nice. It can help to deal with problematic back row if your opponent has some sort of floodgate that's really making it hard for you to play the game. It can help you dodge, again, targeted disruption. And then in the event that maybe you get hit with something like a dimensional barrier on your turn if you're going second and you can't ritual summon, if you can get to Magatama, you can use Magatama to potentially ritual summon on your opponent's turn and bring out something like a Murakumo to disrupt their board or something along those lines at a minimum. So just with flexibility of the card, again, we can recur it. In a pure build, it just gives you more options. Then moving into the regular spells, triple Pre-Preparation of Rites. As I mentioned, this card is great for ritual decks, just the ability to not only grab a ritual spell, but also to grab one of your ritual monsters, especially Habakiri in this deck, is fantastic. The fact that we can play it now just really raises the ceiling of the deck overall. So a card you absolutely want 3 copies of in a pure build. In some other builds, I could maybe see going down to 1 to 2 copies, but in pure, you want to see your Habakiri as often as possible in your opening hand, and Pre-Preparation of Rites is going to help us do that. Then for some one-ofs, we are on 1 Prosperity. Even with all the new starters, there can sometimes be a little bit of consistency issues, so just increasing that consistency with a card like Prosperity, just being able to banish 6 and look at the top 6 cards, pretty much guarantees you're going to find a starter if you don't already have one. And if you do have one, then it can find you a piece of disruption or an extender, whatever you may need. And you'll see me mention it when we go through the extra deck. There's not a whole lot in the extra deck that's crucial to our strategy in a pure build, so we were able to play a lot of flex spots, which means we're not really going to hurt from activating Prosperity, because we're always banishing our least valuable cards, which are the least valuable out of cards we're not already relying on anyway. So 1 card there. Then 1 Thrust and 1 Talents. So again, we have some space in this deck with the pure build, and we are playing a good amount of hand traps, but you still want a couple of board breaker options. Thrust into Talents is always a powerful option, and then Talents, of course, in itself, even going first, is powerful if your opponent does try to disrupt you and you've hard drawn the Talents, just being able to look into their hand. And the fact that Thrust can also set our in archetype trap if our opponent hand trapped us just makes our inboard that much more powerful if they try to disrupt us, and maybe we half combo and then we can Thrust to set the trap. That's going to make it harder for them to play through our board. For the last spell, 1 Called by the Grave. Droll hurts this deck immensely, so we want the Called by the Grave to at least try to stop it if we draw the Called by. Again, Called by being good going first or second as well is always nice, and whether it's Droll, one of them will Charmies, an Ash Blossom, whatever the case may be, Called by is just always great. Moving into the traps, we do have the 1 copy of Mitsurugi Great Purification. Fantastic card. It's a Omni Negate Counter Trap. It's not actually a counter trap, but searchable, settable, thrust, and then the secondary effect to banish itself from graveyard, summon a Mitsurugi from graveyard, and then tribute something else does help in that grind game, and potentially catching your opponent off guard, because people can forget about that second effect quite a bit, especially if it's been in your graveyard for a turn or two, and then it comes up. So 1 copy there. We're not playing the other new trap. I think it's called Mitsurugi Tempest. That card is 100% win more. If you want to go a little bit gimmicky, maybe fully dive into the theme of the archetype, I could see a deck with that in it. But when we're looking at the competitive aspect, it's not a card you're going to want to play. Moving into the rest of the traps and starting the hand traps, one of the biggest advantages of this deck is our ability to play Dominus Impulse. This is, without a doubt, the best hand trap in the format. Everything wants to activate to special summon right now in the meta, and having a hand trap answer to that is just extremely powerful. It's good in the mirror match against Ritual Spell, it's good against Malice, it's good against a multitude of Ryziel cards as well. So just the flexibility of this card and the power of being able to cut your opponent off of a effect to summon is just extremely powerful. And again, the fact that we get to play it in this deck with no downside is fantastic. And then we are on a suite of Charmies, triple Perulia, and triple Fuelos. We want to discourage our opponent from playing when we're going second so that we can break their board more easily, and we want to draw into our other power hand traps like Dominus Impulse or board breakers like Thrust and Talents. So if you have access to mulch armies, I do recommend trying to play minimum of anywhere from, I would say, like 5 to 6 is the minimum where you want to be at. If you don't have access to mulch armies, replace these with other power hand traps, like you could main deck Droll and Lockbird, you could main deck Nibiru. If you do go with Nibiru, just be careful with Dominus Impulse. If you have both in hand going second, you want to make sure you Nibiru first, because if you Impulse first, you're going to be cut off from your Nibiru. But 6 Charmies, if you don't have access to them, again, just substitute with other power hand traps. And then a little bit of a ratio adjustment from what people are used to. We're on double Ash Blossom. It's Ash Blossom. It will always be powerful to a degree, but in all honesty, unless the deck you're going against just opens with a terrible hand, a lot of decks in the format are able to full combo through an Ash Blossom. You're not going to fully shut down a Malice deck 9 times out of 10. You're not going to fully shut down Mitsurugi 9 times out of 10. Of course, Ryziel or something like White Forest. Ash can still be a very powerful card, but it doesn't always have the impact that it used to. Similarly, for that reason, we are only on 2 Infinite Impermanents. I've seen some builds not even play this card at all. I still like to include it at least at 1 to 2 copies in my decks, because it is great going second into Ryziel with something like a Detonator setup. So I still like to have access to it, but very rarely are you going to imperm an opponent's card and just stop their combo. If they have a bad hand, maybe it happens. I had it happen at my last locals, but it's not something you can rely on. And even something like Imperm paired with Ash won't always stop a high-powered deck like Mitsurugi or Malice. So cut down on those copies to allow us to fit other cards like Thrust, Talents, some of the Mitsurugi tech cards into the deck. We're looking at a 42-card build. I think that's an okay number. We do have a couple cards we don't really want to draw, like Mitsurugi Mirror, like Purification going second. So that's why we're at 42, and we're okay with that slightly higher number. Moving into the extra deck, starting with the Exceeds. 1 Code Igniter. This is a brand new card out of Alliance Insight. It's just a generic rank 4 that allows us to detach a material to ritual summon by tributing monsters from our hand or field. People do understand that sometimes you can just Dominus Impulse the Mitsurugi ritual and shut a turn down. So they may do that, thinking they're going to stop you, but then if you have the bodies to get into a Code Igniter, you can use its effect to ritual summon and maybe continue playing. So again, it's not a key card to this strategy, but we have the space in the extra deck, and it is something that can come up and gives us the ability to play through more disruptions potentially. Then just some rank 4 toolbox, 1 Exciton. It's great for breaking boards sometimes if your opponent doesn't set themselves up correctly. This is especially great playing into like a Malice board that doesn't include allied code ad ignister, or if they've already fired that effect, because they don't have a lot of in-archetype cards, or really cards they play in general, that are going to actually stop your Exciton from resolving. So if people don't properly prepare themselves for this card, they can just get blown out by it. 1 King of Feral Imps, just a toolbox card. We don't often need it, but you can find yourselves maybe wanting to search out a Habakiri or whatever the case may be. So 1 copy. If we do get stopped or roadblocked, we can put up a Baguska. It's not too hard to get 2 level 4s out in this deck thanks to prayers. And Baguska, if again, especially going against a deck maybe like Genesis or White Forest decks that can't put link monsters on board to play around Baguska typically, it can be enough to get it back to where you can make another push against your opponent. Playing 1 rank 8 in Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord. I've seen some people play Hope Harbinger in this spot as for rank 8. I went with Photon Lord because it detaches to use its negation effect. Hope Harbinger does not detach. So there's boards you can set up, for example, that will be like IP Masquerena, Futsu, and Hope Harbinger, Photon Lord. And you can Photon Lord detach a Murakumo that's underneath it, and then Futsu to summon back that Murakumo later in the turn. So that's why I like Photon Lord, because it gets our rituals back into the graveyard to be summoned back, versus Hope Harbinger kind of having them stuck under there. 1 Zeus, it can come up, especially with a card like Talents against Raziel, or if we just have one of our Exceeds at battles, we can make a Zeus in main phase 2. A good, again, toolbox. For the same reason, Typhon, if you find yourself in a grind game, Typhon can win you games, regardless of what people like to say that it never wins a game. If you play it right and you're in the right situation, it'll win you games. Moving into the links, 1 link 1, that's Al Mirage. We're playing SP Little Knight that you'll see in a moment. Al Mirage is just something you can turn a hand trap into, or I believe Saji can turn into it. And then be able to use it as an extra deck body to go into SP to get her full banish effect. 1 Reptilian Echidna. I've had this come up like once, the fact that it can make an opponent's monster 0 and then get you a search as well, and it only needs 1 reptile. So for example, if you steal something with a Raziel Detonator, if you steal something like a Raziel Detonator with the Talents, and you don't want to have to give it back if you don't kill your opponent, you can link it off into Echidna and potentially get another search off of her as well. 1 Haggard Lizardos, again, it's a generic link 2, but also because we're actually a reptile deck, pretty much anything we banish off of its effect is going to get us a draw, whether you want to banish itself, whether you want to banish something else like an extra Aramasa in your graveyard to maybe reduce an opponent's monster, get yourself a little bit deeper into your deck, whatever the case may be. It's a good option to have. 1 Dark the Dark Charmer. We can steal our opponent's Murakumos in the mirror match. You can always steal a powerful Malice card, or just, even if it's not going to be powerful for you, like maybe like a White Binder, if you're able to just get it out of your opponent's graveyard, that can be great as well. 1 IP Masquerena. You heard me mention it's fairly easy to put up an inboard that includes this card along with something like a Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord. Once you've used that Photon Lord, you can link it off of IP Masquerena, or you can link it off with one of your rituals to go into a Dynamondo. You'll see in a moment. You've heard me mention SP Little Knight, just a good utility card to have access to, especially to get rid of something like a Detonator. 1 Dynamondo. Incredibly powerful card for this deck. We can go into it on our opponent's turn with IP Masquerena, use its own summon effect to shuffle back like an extra Habakiri from our graveyard to spin one of our opponent's cards back to deck, and then we can use its other quick effect to tag it out into a Murakumo to bring the Murakumo out to trigger the Raigeki effect. So very good at disruption and helping get some of your ritual pieces back on board as well. And then for the last card in the extra deck, one Chaos Angel. Again, we play talents. There's a possibility that we steal an opponent's monster, like a Bestial or something along those lines. That helps us get into this card. Again, you've heard me say it over and over again. In the pure build, you really do have a lot of flex spots in your extra deck. So if you don't like Chaos Angel, you feel like maybe a second Dynamondo would be good in the deck, which I wouldn't blame you. You can always cut this out for something else. But I do like having the utility of a Chaos Angel. You never know when it's going to come up. And that does it for a deck profile, everybody. Let me know what you think. Like I said, I really like this deck. I really like the flexibility and seeing what people are doing, whether they're playing pure Mitsurugi, whether they're playing it with Azumina, whether they're playing it with Ryzeal is, probably the most meta popular one. But just the different things you can do with this deck, and it's really fun to play with, and also not the worst to play against because there's so much interaction going on. But let me know what you think about this build specifically in the comments down below. Do you like the pure route, or do you like to mix it with something else? If you have any interesting combinations you've done with the deck, I would love to hear about it in those comments. And as always, keep an eye out for more Alliance Insight content. We have more deck profiles that'll be coming out all the way up until Battles of Legend. And then also don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on all of our future content. Thanks, guys. Take care.